Sorry, give it one
That's
second.
okay. I'm too eager now. I want to
Well,
do
I wanna hear
well.
your
of this
story.
stuff.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, this is a curriculum and learning committee meeting. It's Thursday, June 29th, 2023. And we're at the school district of Menominee Falls, the Board of Education, for curriculum and learning committee meeting. There is a possibility that a quorum of the full membership of the Board of Education may be in attendance at board committee meetings, including virtual meetings. There will be no full board action taken at any board committee meeting. Only members of the committee may vote on any item on the agenda. A live broadcast will be streamed on the school district's YouTube page. To watch the recording, please visit SDMF YouTube site. And we're at the district office in the conference room 334-3345 in Menominee Falls. And what's my next step? Posting. The meeting is posted at
Yes.
2:01. Oh, it just turned to 2:02. And then do I ask, was the meeting properly posted?
Yes, it was.
Okay, I forgot that step last time. All right, and then moving right ahead. Oh yeah, see, I didn't follow along. So we're moving to approval of minutes. Did you get a chance to look at the minutes, Sarah? Oh, and I wanted to mention that Nina is running late. She will be in attendance, but she's running late. So.
Okay.
Did you get a chance to look at the minutes?
Yes.
All right.
Do you need a motion to approve? I'll motion.
Okay, I'll second. I'm still learning my training wheels here on this process. So move to approve, so all in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, and the minutes are passed. Okay, next up, action item, elementary science curriculum adoption recommendation for the 23-24 school year.
Yes. So earlier this year, we came to you to let you know that we, and a little bit before I started in this role, the process of looking at elementary science materials had started. And we came to you with a report that we had piloted, or we had reviewed 3 different curricular programs and had selected 2 to pilot.
Okay.
And so we have done that, and we promised we would come back in the spring, early summer with a recommendation, and we have that now. So
Okay, great.
I'm very excited to share that with you. I have 2 of our learning improvement specialists here, Angie Sardina and Nina Oberholzer. Angie is the learning improvement specialist at Riverside and Valley View.
And Ava's mom?
Yes, yes, I am. Yes, we all know Ava.
Yeah.
So, and then Nina is the learning improvement specialist at Shady Lane in Ben Franklin. And part of their role, obviously, a lot of it is around continuous improvement and mentoring and coaching new teachers, but it is also to lead the curricular review process for science and social studies. And so these 2 ladies, this was their first opportunity to do this, and they did a beautiful job. So they did the day-to-day leading of it through at the schools.
Okay.
So I'm really excited to have them talk through how that went and what our recommendation is. So I will turn it over to them, although I'll probably jump in from time to time as well.
Feel free.
All right, well, I'll get us started. So
Okay.
kind of 3 outcomes of our time together today, just to review what process was used, and then the data and feedback around those 2 resources that were piloted. So the data and feedback that were gathered from the piloting teachers, from students who were engaged in each of using those resources, and then also from families. And then the third part will be the recommendation for the adoption based on all of the data and feedback that was gathered. So we used procedure 361, that board procedure, and it speaks to that curricular resources need to be aligned to state standards, they need to be engaging, there needs to be assessment opportunities and interdisciplinary connections, visually appealing, clear and practical and organized in its use, developmentally appropriate. Just some of those components that are a part of that procedure and policy 361 We pulled out a few here to highlight. So we did have, our process was guided by this board procedure. And based on that, if you can go ahead, we laid out like a project flow chart. We created a plan, including and detailing the steps and what needed to be done with that, if there were any documents connected to that work or the timeline around it. And then just kind of monitored completion of each of those steps as the pilot went on. So we had teams of teachers and leaders, and they reviewed the pitches from the 3 different curricular resources. Like Amy had mentioned, we used the curriculum review process. We were actually all right here in this room as they presented their materials and their science resources. So based on that review process and based on the information that guides our work in the board policy, as well as a survey we did with teachers regarding like their values in elementary science, we pulled all that together and selected the top 2, which was mystery science and amplify science. So those were then the 2 that were piloted. So as a part of the pilot, there was training for the teachers using both of those 2 different resources. There was an overview of the unit, and we used the same semester or trimester 3 unit content so that kids in pilot classrooms were getting the exact same learning outcomes as students who were not. So those were how the unit was determined of what to pilot. We laid out pacing for those teachers so that they could teach a full unit within that 6 weeks before the end of the school year. There were 2 and sometimes even more teachers at each grade level. We'll show that kind of in a minute. So there were teachers in every one of our 4 elementary schools piloting both resources at each grade level. So they were able to see kind of what they were doing day in and day out and also talk to their colleague teacher next door and find out how does this look with the materials you're using, because they had those same learning outcomes, just using different resources. So they did teach that entire unit, and it ran April 17th to May 26th, so we had a 6-week pilot time. So this just gives you just a big picture kind of overview. There were 27 teachers a part of the pilot. And you can see, it goes through each grade, the number of teachers that were involved, and then the unit that they piloted. So in kindergarten, although Amplify and Mystery Science are 2 different curricular resources, they were both working on goals around plants and animal needs. And that's consistent throughout all of K-5. So there were 27 teachers in our district that were very deeply entrenched in utilizing the materials and giving feedback on a weekly basis, and really drove this process.
I'm sorry, I might have missed it. Was it just the semester or it was all year?
It was trimester 3.
Okay, I missed that, sorry.
So it was April 17th to May 26th
Oh,
were the
yeah, you
actual
said
like
that.
instructional dates. That's okay.
Okay.
So there was work prior to that, but then the teaching was during that last
Gotcha.
6 weeks. Yep.
So I
Okay,
think we came to you at the,
yeah, it
might have
wasn't
been
here.
the February meeting.
And I don't think it was
Because
that
I
one?
think that was the one we did virtually, cause I'm
Yeah.
picturing sitting at my dining room table and talking
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
That's why I remember.
And it wasn't on the curriculum, I mean, I came to some meetings,
Right,
but
yeah.
yeah.
So that was that weird meeting that we had while a snowstorm was going on outside.
yeah.
And then it took us a while to kind of work out the details with the 2
Yeah.
vendors, and we had spring break in there, and then
Okay.
had to get the materials in place for Amplify, and a lot of physical materials. So and then we did training.
there.
Yeah,
I'm just
so-
saying.
Yeah, for sure.
I was kinda like,
Yeah. So
Did
I
you
was
prefer-
talking, Laura would agree.
I mean, you might we'll discuss it later, but it didn't seem very user friendly for teachers. I don't know, but it might have a lot of stuff.
Yes, that was, you'll see
Yeah,
that's one
okay,
of the
all right.
reasons we're recommending the direction we are, yeah.
Alright.
But it did give us a solid 6 weeks, and teachers typically do a unit of social studies and a unit of science within a trimester.
Mhm.
So that's a typical range of time that teachers would utilize a science unit in the normal course of business.
Mhm.
So it was reasonable for for what we were looking for.
Okay.
I don't think we felt, it was tight, but we
No.
didn't feel overly rushed or
No,
pressured
or I
when we
think
didn't finish.
Once teachers got going, they're like, oh, this is manageable. You know, it's a little
Sure.
overwhelming
Well,
when
it
you
sounds
first.
like
I mean, I
this was
could
very
tell.
well thought out, very organized. I mean, even just with the selection, the pre-training, so then yes, you want the rollout to be like, whew, we.
And did it align pretty good, like the topics that you were looking at?
We had to pick and choose, we had to move
Yeah.
things around
To
to
make
make
it
sure,
fit.
because it was at the end, we didn't want kids to miss out on
Yeah,
a certain type of learning. But they all lined up so that
So
it was what their
it
colleagues
covered
were
the
not
bases.
piloting, were also covering matter or
okay.
water properties or whatever it
Yeah.
was, so that was seamless as well.
Oh, okay.
Might have to we had to reorganize the order that the resource presents them
Yeah.
in, but that doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, typically they can be used in any order.
Oh, okay.
Lesson.
So for our feedback, we did a weekly survey, which worked out well because when you only do kind of mid and end, teachers tend to be thinking of the last couple lessons they taught rather than the whole thing. So we did collect weekly feedback, and again, those feedback questions were really based upon the policy, things that we're looking for, you know, how they felt things were going in each of those components using that policy and then giving us that weekly feedback, and then that helped us as LIS folks to realize, ooh, did we have anything we needed to address as we're getting in this weekly stuff rather than just at the end all of a sudden or at halfway through all of a sudden realizing we had issues. Nina and I did a lot of observations in classrooms just to kind of see it in practice and see how things were going. Amy was able to do some observations as well, so that again just gave us another piece of feedback to use in the process. We did share the feedback out with the staff along the way as well as with Amy so they could kind of see what their colleagues were thinking. Midway, we did kind of a formal check, like, all right, we're halfway through. If you had to choose today, what were you thinking and why, as far as how you would choose things? We did, as part of that policy, we solicited feedback from parents and students, and while they weren't in a place to compare two different resources, because their
Yeah.
student was part of one, we still wanted to just make sure there weren't any concerns, as well as see what they had to say and what was, well, we'll get into some of that feedback a little bit later. And then finally, at the end, we said, all right, now you've done the whole thing, you've seen feedback along the way, you've talked with your colleagues who are piloting the opposite resources, what would you recommend? And it all worked out great.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and we would have, had circumstances been different, actually pulled that pilot review team together physically if we needed to have further conversation. It turned out we didn't need to, so
Yeah,
the years
we were
we chose
prepared
not
to do that if we needed to, but it was so clear what the teachers preferred, there
Sure.
wasn't really a reason to do
Necessary.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, we knew we were butting up against the end of the year, so that's actually really the reason we did that midway check. Because we're like, okay, that allows 3
It's
weeks,
close.
that if we need to schedule some meetings face
Get
to
on
face
top
and
of
pull
it,
everyone together, we need to kind of know where people are at. And based on that midway check, it was pretty clear also, along with the weekly feedback, so we were gathering a lot of data every week.
Okay.
And it was consistent, which is also helpful.
Yeah, so it made it really easy. It was like, we could all come together, but I don't know that we have a lot to discuss. I think we're in a pretty
Sure.
good place and people were fine with that.
why meet
so.
if you don't have to?
Exactly. So, yeah. feedback
Okay, you
is-
can go to class and then, yes. So this is kind of the data we collected from teachers, and this is kind of summary, so that student learning piece, there might have been 3 questions about that, but then we kind of looked at that average score. So even just looking at this, you can see that we had one resource that really was jumping ahead as far as kind of some of those key components around student learning engagement, student use, the aesthetic, the teacher ease of use, as well as the supplemental resources. Supplemental resources are okay if you feel like I wanna seek out I have this really cool video of a shark actually swimming that I wanna show them, that's great, but when you have to do too much of that,
Yeah.
then your resource is lacking something, and then we get into all classrooms kind of looking really different, and we don't want that, we want some consistency, little bits are fine, so that's why it's important that those questions were asked around there. All right, you can go to the next one, Amy. This is what we learned from students, again, students weren't comparing, but again, we saw some significant differences in how they were feeling about what they piloted. This slide was our older students, I would say second grade, some second grade classes through 5th grade, that were able to utilize their computers to give us, using a Google form, kind of give us some thoughts on that. The next slide is some of our youngest learners. The teachers just kind of said, what are you liking about science right now? Or is there anything you're not liking? And they had some of the we had like really cute comments that the teachers dictated for the students around a lot of sharing of facts, which I thought was interesting, that the little kids, when we said like, what do you like about science? They were rattling off all these facts that they were learning about plants and animals, or I think that shows that they were really passionate about their learning and really retaining some really solid information, which
Well, I
was
think
neat.
calling it mystery too adds a little.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Mhm.
Super fun.
So who doesn't want to solve a mystery?
Yeah, right?
And it really is how it's posed to kids too, is there's this kind
Yeah.
of anchor question that leads through the unit, like, have
Okay,
you ever seen this or noticed this? I wonder why that is. And then throughout the
Yeah.
unit, you're getting little things that will help you at the end be
Yeah.
able to answer that big
because it's more than the
question.
video, right?
Oh, gosh,
I mean,
yeah,
there was
yeah.
more to it. I didn't have tons of time to
I
seek
clicked through and
yeah.
it did kind of walk them through
Yeah,
that,
like a
like the
little
next
lesson plan
steps.
and- yeah.
And then how they came to that conclusion, but I did like that too, because then they're thinking about it the
Mhm.
whole time.
Mhm.
And that's how they learn.
And seeing that
Yeah.
whole big connection to something real in their world, but also it's a developmentally appropriate question, the way it's asked, but it's some pretty deep knowledge that they were gaining. And then the feedback from parents, again, they weren't able to compare necessarily, but I think what it spoke to, parents were saying unprompted, kids were coming home with comments about their science, what they were learning, which I think shows it was time for us as a district to maybe get something new and fresh in the teachers' hands and the students to learn about and all of that good stuff. So I think this is very timely. But just lots of positives, no concerns that we heard at all about anything.
Like
no,
literally not one,
What is
which
it replacing? I,
was surprising.
or do we, if you know offhand, it's not a big deal.
National Geographic.
Oh, okay,
Mhm.
because it kind of had that, that kind of
There's,
feel, but a little different, yeah.
I was gonna say one in
Oh,
K
UK2 was-
one,
yeah,
and then one
K1.
in 2.5
Yeah.
is the Nat Geo,
Mhm.
Oh,
and then K one.
so then maybe it was more streamlined.
Right,
it's not
because it'll
all
be
different,
consistent.
yeah.
Right, and that was
Five.
one of the things that my predecessor had set out, and I stuck with, that we needed to have the same program K through 5.
Okay,
So that it was seamless and for the students, so.
And make it easier for the teacher, because then you're not having to reveal what concepts have we taught, what concepts we need to bring in.
Yes, and as we'll talk about, I've done these ladies once, if we get approval today, these ladies will be digging in more deeply to like how the standards go across.
Mhm.
I've done a preliminary look and it is very seamless, like our standards are there, and with one exception, like really should be easy for us to implement,
okay,
based on what standards we have for science.
okay.
Just a little
Good to
preview.
know, yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, so after all of that,
Mm.
78%, so we're talking about, almost 80% of the
was
teachers recommended mystery science, so that made it pretty clear how
Mhm.
teachers were feeling. And there weren't really in the folks who liked what they were piloting or amplified the program, there wasn't any major concerns about like, there's no way we can be adopting this, it's just they preferred
Okay.
something about the part the one that they taught.
Okay.
And they were able to, in order to make their recommendation, they were given all of the data compiled from all 6 weeks. So all of that was compiled together. They could see all of their colleagues, not only quantitative data, but they could see all their comments throughout the weeks of like what was working, what wasn't for each
Mhm.
individual week. They got the student feedback for everybody. It's like when you're in your classroom, you know what's going on in your four walls,
Yeah.
but then to kind of know what's happening at a totally different school and how they were feeling, and they saw all of the parents. So prior to making a decision, they got all of that. And then also their own experience.
Experience, yeah.
Alright, so these are the units that are covered, so you can see again, there's a nice not siloed, like there are things that are revisited in other grade levels, but we have a nice flow here. There's life science units that really focus on life science, earth and space sciences and physical science, but there is some, like just because the animals through time unit, for example, is in life science, there may be some earth science concepts that are brought in there, or some physical science concepts. It's not really standalone, they all kind of integrate a little bit, but it's mostly would be falling into these components.
Okay.
And again, there's a nice connection between the next generation science standards, which we've adopted, and these units. They are designed to meet all of those standards.
Perfect.
The only thing I noticed is,
Yeah.
is that the way our standards are currently laid out, the second grade physical science, that material magic, actually covers the standards that we teach in third grade. And the invisible forces in third grade covers the standards that we typically teach in second grade.
Okay.
So one thing I'm gonna ask these ladies to do is to dig into that a little more deeply and see if they can see the standard. We adopted the standards back in like 2015. So I don't know why we did it that way. Does it need to stay that way? Do we need to flip-flop the
Flip-flop it.
units?
Yeah.
Or should we flip-flop the standards?
Right.
My challenge was flip-flopping the units is that's second to third grade, which is two different buildings. So when you get a second grade
Communication
kit
and
that
then-
has some materials, in a traditional K through 5, I'd say go give those materials to your third grade colleague. Now it's a little more challenging, so.
And then I would think maybe reading level might factor into
Oh,
maybe
okay.
It could, I think-
articles
I was gonna
and
say, is it more
That's-
complex, slightly more
That's what I
complex where you
think
have to
we
be
need
inserted?
to-
Okay.
We'll need to
Dig
dig into
further
those.
Dig into
Yeah.
the sides, because it might be, it might not be. So
Okay.
standards wise, I can't see a huge difference why they are the way they are.
Yeah.
But we'll dig a little bit more if you
Okay.
approve this, and so
Okay.
there's a possibility
To
that
see where
we
the
may.
easier
Yeah,
easier
see
shit
what
is.
makes
Revisit
most
that
sense for kids.
standard.
And I
Yeah,
think the
so-
standards are written in grade bands,
They
not
are,
grade
Yeah.
levels.
So
So it wouldn't
There's wiggle
be
room.
deviating
Yeah.
from the standard, it's
This
just kind
is
of within
just-
this chunk of years of learning, this content should be learned.
Yeah.
So,
so for whatever reason, it's
Yeah.
just that's
I would
just the piece
imagine
that's
some standards
reversed.
can be interchangeable.
They
Mhm.
they definitely
For
can
grade
be.
or
They're
depending,
designed
yeah.
to be like
Okay.
K through 2, yeah.
Gotcha.
So that's possible that if you adopt this today, we go back and do some digging, we may wanna come back to you and say, we'd like to approve this switch.
Okay.
But I don't know that for sure yet.
Okay.
We'll do some
And we didn't wanna get too ahead of ourselves.
correct,
Yeah.
because yes, whenever we adopt a new curriculum, there are those kinds of things to work out as
Mhm.
you learn it more in depth.
Yeah.
So, but I just, for my own knowledge and curiosity, I did an initial check. I was like, oh, something to pay attention to. So, but otherwise, it flows beautifully.
Interesting.
So, and then the cost is, well, it's always been, this is not what I expected.
I know.
A typical science program, I mean, I was estimating between $250,000 and $300,000 for, upfront for materials that we would use for 6, 7 years. This is an annual cost, but it is,
Cause it's more like a subscription.
Okay, that's
And
what I was
what's
gonna
really
ask.
something that I didn't really think as much about until recently is the idea, and I think Sage kind of talked to us about that. She was our rep, she was so awesome, super
Okay.
easy to work with questions and things. Is that because it is all based online, you download what you need, you print the number rather than you're not purchasing like a class set of 30 books for your 21 kids.
Yeah.
And maybe half the pages you don't really need, or all that
Yeah.
good stuff. So that, but also one of the really added benefits, in addition to like a huge, it seems like significant class savings, is
Mhm.
they can pull, they solicit feedback from teachers that are using it, and you can read. I thought it was really cool. I wasn't teaching the lessons per se, but teachers give feedback to each other, like
And
a little like forum where they say, hey, I worked really well when I did teams of 3 on this experiment because one could do
Nice.
this, one could do that, and they share those ideas. But also if they get feedback from teachers like this lesson stunk, this is not working, they pull it down, update, change, and then push it back up. So it's not, we have to reprint an entire edition, or we have to wait 7 years to get the new edition with the
Yeah.
better
Yeah.
content. Or
How
just
long-
think about how
yeah.
much science changes too,
Yeah.
new discoveries and new
Mhm.
learning, and they can just make those changes and updates, or something gets older, they threw in a new lesson. It seemed like they just were like, are able to
Yeah.
do that based on their structure. So I think that's
that's what I was
a
gonna
huge
ask,
thing
are we
too.
just buying the lessons that we have currently or they will change?
they could update
Okay.
and they
Mhm.
shouldn't change without notifying us, like a
Mhm.
unit or the standards, but they might tweak a lesson
Okay.
in there around the same topic, again, just to make it more effective or to make it more
Yeah, it's-
engaging based on feedback.
It seemed more just like tweaking lessons, you're not changing
Standards
entire
or,
units
the
where like,
facts.
oh, this isn't gonna line up,
Actual-
not that. I think
yeah.
that, like Amy said, would be a significant thing we'd have some sort of a warning about. But it was more just being able to make those tweaks and changes and things based on feedback or new discovery of something or whatever.
How long is the average amount of time that we use a curriculum?
So,
7?
minimum of 7 years typically.
Okay.
Now, this has the added benefit currently is it's just an annual subscription.
Correct.
So got a little flexibility there. Ultimately, will we be able to get something, 3 to 5 years? That's not something that we've been able to get so far, and I kind of feel comfortable, let's try 1 year and see where we are. So, but that would
spread it out over time.
correct. And
The
the other thing is, just for background, I know one of the questions when we talked about piloting was what other districts use this.
Okay.
So there aren't a ton in our area that currently use
Okay.
this as their primary resource.
Alright.
2 that do are Pewaukee and Mequon. And I talked with Mequon, and they really, really like it. They like the usability for their teachers. Their kids find it engaging. It's rigorous. It hits the standards. So they were very, very supportive and encouraging about us adopting it as well.
Okay.
One of the things and the other thing is it's fairly easy for teachers to implement. So the amount of training time that we need is minimal compared to, for example, Amplify. I think we spent 3 hours with teachers just to pilot.
Sure.
So that's that was
Pilot a
3 that was 3 early release times
Wow.
dedicated to, the science pilot, which is a significant amount of our PE time.
Yeah.
So this one is a little bit more user friendly. So they found that their commitment to professional development was smaller than it might otherwise have been. The usability has made sure that it's in the classroom. And I think I said in the pilot phase, the right program for us is going to be the one that's usable for teachers. Because we put so much emphasis on reading and math that, science can get pushed to the wayside, and we don't want that.
No.
Because it's engaging, it's important, kids, so the ease of use is really important. The other thing they said is that while they anticipated buying those materials kits
I was gonna ask about
every
the
year,
kids.
they didn't find that they needed to do that.
Oh.
Because the kits will serve 30, and teachers seemed to have enough to maybe get through 2 years or only need to purchase pieces.
Oh.
And so I'm planning for, we need to purchase a new one
Cause
every
it's
year.
like supplies for
Yeah, it's
experiments
the,
or-
Sure.
consumable
And everything,
materials.
And they
some
could
stuff
probably
is consumable,
Go
like,
seek it out too.
Right, there could be
Okay.
other ways that
Yeah.
we'll do that, and
Yeah.
that's something we'll monitor
I mean, it's just
over the
convenient
next
because
year.
it's packaged, right?
It is, and having been in science and Laura
oh, Laura does
Laura
not
knows
want
how that
to
works. It can get very cumbersome to
Oh,
be
I gotta get this. and I
doing
gotta-
those
yeah.
little pieces,
Oh,
and
I
sometimes
understand.
the efficiency of it is.
Yeah, the
It's not worth
convenience.
the cost.
We just did it
Just
for,
budget it for the kit.
because
Oh,
it
yeah,
was
that's
as a kit, you had to buy the whole year. And
Oh.
so for that pilot unit, just for that pilot unit, we bought, like, we found stuff on Amazon and
Yeah.
whatever, and they did have nice links, like they provide you with links, but it was beyond challenging, even just for that one unit, for that number of teachers to get them 30 of this or 20, and light bulbs and the right seeds and, all this, it's a lot. So the convenience of that is huge.
And we really wanna ensure that every 4th grade classroom is getting that same experience.
Yeah.
Not Miss
Streamlined.
Sardina chooses to go out and buy all the things and Miss Overholser doesn't buy any of the things. And so my class has a different science experiment.
Yeah.
Where we're watching videos and reading, and her class is doing projects and planting things and, observing. And so I think too, the kits really help to serve with like a consistent curriculum
Well, I
for
mean-
all students as well.
With that and that's all in that 31,000.
Yes,
So,
yes.
I mean,
So the relative cost for this
Yeah.
on an annual basis is something that I'm very comfortable with,
Yeah.
for what we're getting.
Okay.
So, but we'll continue to monitor, and if we don't need to buy the kits next year, we'll
Yeah, if
play
it's
that by
something
ear.
that was just like consumable, like we need another bag of cotton balls,
Mm-hmm.
then that's manageable compared to
Mhm.
refilling the kits every year.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, and then just one more, so for the professional development, over the summer, once this is approved, there's some legwork that Nina and I can do, and Amy looking at, getting some feedback from piloting districts as well as from our piloting teachers, and just kind of looking through things and getting things lined up. In the fall, we do have those in-service days where we can provide them with some overview of how to use the site and some training there, but again, it's not as much. The help that the when we've had to contact Mystery Science, their support, their embedded support is huge, even just that chat feature, like things were really quick in getting the support that you needed. So teachers can certainly do that independently and cut us out, but on the other hand too, that's part of our job is to kind of be that facilitator, to take that off of their load if needed. And then we can provide that support throughout the year, whether that's, co-teaching some lessons if teachers feeling particularly intimidated by a certain thing, or some of our newer staff. As well as the way we structured this, that last bullet is really appealing to me, the way we structured the pilot. Every single grade level at every single building has a teacher who piloted the resource, so they should be able to kind of be an ambassador to say, you guys trust me, we wanted this. When teachers are saying, I don't know if I like this, trust me, we do. We saw some of the others, as well as knowing how, just a quick, one more click and you got to the information you needed that you thought was missing. Yeah. Or say, hey, here's some things I did that worked well, or here's how I linked my parent overview letter to my Google Classroom, however those kinds of things. There are people in every building besides us who could answer a lot of those questions, which I think will be really helpful as well. Then as far as communication, this program does, because it is online, there's quick, easy links to parent emails and things that are included that can just be linked into your newsletter or printed out, however teachers prefer to communicate with families. There's a nice unit overview, as far as not an overview about individual lessons, but here's what we're going to be learning this unit. Here are big learnings that are going to be happening in experiments. And then it also links directly to Google Classroom, which a lot of our, especially 3-5 teachers use, so kids have access to that thing in a format that they're very comfortable with accessing. The assessment forms, there's some online assessment options that teachers can utilize if they prefer to pencil paper. So I think it links very well that way as well.
So the parent emails, is that goes through PowerSchool or Schoology, or I guess what?
However teachers would decide to do it.
Mode of communication, because that's one of the things we've been working on is communicating curriculum.
So these guys haven't gotten a chance to hear that we'll probably have some more guidelines around how we'll be doing that for everybody.
Yeah.
So, but it sounds like regardless of how we set that up,
right, exactly.
that it's available.
This program
and it's still being worked on,
I mean, it's they thought of everything.
formulated.
It's not something where a teacher would have to create it. They can copy and paste or link or download, however they
Easier
do
for the
it.
teacher to help connect with parents and then
And a consistent message again, for sure.
Yeah, in the K-2, the collaborative kind of conversation was, that weekly newsletter that goes home that has the little blurb about all the subjects or a field trip or whatever. Just copy paste it right from the site.
Yep.
Into your weekly newsletter, here's what we're learning this week in science, and then,
Perfect.
you don't have to create it, you're not afraid you're missing some things, or, so you don't have to do it that way, but I think that's what many of the piloting teachers felt like was the easiest and
Well, and it's efficient,
way.
right? They have it done already. They know what the topics are. I think that makes sense. I'd be doing it.
and then parents
Yeah,
aren't gonna.
exactly. Why are we
Why create work?
Yeah. There are other places where we need you to write your individual, original stuff, but if you don't need to here, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I
That's
was
really the bulk of our presentations.
when I was scrolling through the topics, and I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here, but there were 2 topics. One was on vaccines and one was on COVID.
Oh, you caught those
So-
too? Those were 2 that I saw.
So will that be in any of those units?
I guess I don't know where those lessons, what grade levels or what
It
units
said,
those fell into.
when I wrote notes, it said K-5. And one was kind of bummer, to talk about COVID. I don't know.
So,
But it related to disease in the past, that kind of thing. I don't necessarily think it's
So my opinion on that,
Mhm.
the COVID one too, was kind of like this, it was telling children you don't need to be afraid, or what you went through has happened before. I feel in that way kind of quells some of that anxiety that you would have over a situation like that. On the flip side, it almost normalized this lockdown masking thing, if we have to do this again, which again, you can't.
And masking.
I
I was
can't
just
predict
literally
that, so,
scrolling around and then I'm
So-
reverse.
so I didn't,
But I don't see it would be in any of these units
It was
necessarily.
biology or something, I think.
Oh, was it?
so there may be some things that aren't attached to particular units.
Gotcha.
So that's something that we can go in and look at
Yeah, I'll
more
look.
deeply.
I didn't catch the topic
But I don't-
of the unit
Yeah,
label.
Yeah,
I
looking
think
at
it was
those
more human
titles.
body kind of thing.
looking at
Right.
those titles, maybe human machine, maybe like that's
But
talking about
even
body, I don't know.
That unit, as I looked at it, was pretty specific to
Yeah.
certain
Yeah.
components of the human body.
Well,
and
the one that
not-
caught me was the vaccine one, where it said, I wrote down the quote, it said, glasses, it said it stops germs from making you sick, but it's not,
So there are
I mean,
two
it's kind of
parts
like a
on, like
family
on the
thing.
site, there's the units,
yeah,
which is what we would be utilizing, and then
Gotcha.
there's another portion
okay,
called like these little, just like mini, a lot of them are like little 5-minute.
those were the ones I was
Okay.
looking at.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
what
So
we're
like
gonna
it poses
Okay.
a question,
All right,
it's
I
like,
get
hey Doug, and a
When
lot
I
of
was like,
times it's
what,
like
like
kids.
why
writing
didn't
the
talk
question.
about that with little kids,
Yes,
in my opinion,
those
I mean,
are like a part of the
'Cause that-
curricular resource that we
Yeah.
would be.
cause I, you know, I mean, that's kind of, like I have
one was the
opposing
third grade
opinions.
mini lesson, I can see that here, and then, they were under the, gosh,
So I didn't dig enough on that then.
So
'Cause-
it's just,
well,
Like the
there's
units?
just two sides, there's
Okay.
like the units,
Yeah.
the curricular
Okay.
resources, and then there's just kind of like other fun stuff. A lot
Okay.
of them are kind of these 5-minute, a lot of them are posed as a question.
Yeah, that's what
That
Kids
I,
write
well, that's
questions.
what I
A
wanted
kid
to-
writes and says, you know, something
Yeah.
they're wondering, and then they
That's
kind of answer the
not-
question.
So
So
that's not
okay,
in
so
there,
those,
That
Yeah.
wouldn't be what we were what we're
Okay.
using because
Right.
that's not tied to the standard
Okay.
even as we look at the human body pieces
or the
development.
as supplemental curriculum, would that be used?
I don't know why it would be.
Okay.
yeah. It just caught my attention, I'm not, you know, and it's kind of like, well, the COVID thing is kind of like just a downer.
Right.
But,
So
Yeah,
I don't
definitely
know.
those are separate from like these science
We're
units that
adapting.
we would be,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
so that would be not in that curriculum, okay, great. All right, I love it, I think it looks great, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
My 13-year-old was peeking over my shoulder when I was looking at the videos.
And there's some, I'm glad we went through this pilot process, cause I don't think if we had to bet when we got the pitches what we thought would happen. I don't think this is it, which shows why you actually like live with a unit and teach it, so that you're not just looking at a presentation.
So was your first impression like the other one wasn't gonna give you enough, or
Yeah, or I thought it was just gonna be like
fluff,
the video,
Videos,
just
yes,
videos,
yeah,
and we want
like, I
kids to
know.
be touching stuff
Yeah.
and doing
Yeah.
stuff.
interactive,
And it was, and then there is the element of, especially in the area of science, where if you're talking about, like, I know the kindergarten, like, I thought it was just so cute, like having them move and try to eat food the way animals do, or something like that, where you have to actually see that happen,
Okay,
you
no.
can't see that in a still picture in a book.
Yeah.
Is not gonna bring to life the idea, so like videos in science where they actually see how the animal uses its wings or its claws or their beaks and like all of that kind of
It's
stuff.
tangible.
Yeah, that's important rather than the still photo. So the videos, I think, add to it
Mhm.
rather than being like a crutch to it.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
So, and I will admit, when we first started this, I thought, okay, my
It's
belief
not
is
gonna-
that the other one is gonna be stronger, more rigorous, that's what we need.
Yeah,
And then as I was observing in a classroom, one particular day I walked in a little bit after the lesson had started,
mhm,
and so I couldn't remember which, I knew, because every time I went in, I knew which teacher and which program.
Yeah.
And I went in and I thought I was looking at one, and I was looking at mystery, it was mystery science,
Oh.
I was like, okay.
well, that's interesting too, because I've seen, you know, curriculum reviews too, where like some like parts of one and another, and they wanna marry the two, so
Well, the
that's
consistency
great.
here, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
hands down, you can't argue with that.
Yeah.
That's great though, it does bring that to the forefront. It sounds like this, this company has kind of thought of every element that a teacher would wanna implement in the classroom, and then to know that they are supportive and responsive.
And I would think too, they almost like, they get better and better as the years go
Yeah,
on too.
which you can't do in the same way with so many physical materials,
Yeah.
so,
Right.
The living resource.
yes.
Do you have any more questions, or do you, are
We are looking for a
you
motion.
open? Alright.
And hoping for approval.
I gotta get my glasses on and read it, I wrote all over my page now, so. So I need a motion to approve the proposed science curriculum adoption to begin in the 2023-2024 school year. I did say that correctly, Laura? Got it?
Yes, for mystery science.
Are you gonna correct, for mystery
I'll
science?
add in the for mystery
Thank
science.
you.
Yes,
Okay.
I'll make a
Darn it, I
motion
missed
to approve mystery science.
And I'll
as the new curriculum.
second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Feel silly saying it, but. All right, good. That's awesome. I'm excited.
Well, thank you.
I'll be looking forward to hearing about it.
So I did, when we get to the calendar, you'll
Yeah.
see that I built in a time next spring
Yeah.
for us to come back and share where
Mhm.
we are, what we've learned, and
Sure.
and where we're going.
That'd be
So,
great.
Yeah, keep us
that'd be
posted if
great.
you need, that standard
I was
versus.
gonna say, yeah, we'll take
Yeah.
a deeper look at that and see what
What
we recommend.
is easier,
Yeah.
cause again, when you're looking at curriculums like this and it is rolled out in different buildings, maybe looking at that standard, if it's easier to switch at that level.
Yeah. If it doesn't have a
Yeah.
developmental or a, reading component or something that would prohibit us,
Mhm.
it
Right.
probably would be simpler just to say, oh, let's flip flop those
Okay.
grade
There's these
levels.
standards and
And then the
Right.
materials and everything lines up and
Yeah.
kids are still getting but if there's some compelling reason why we shouldn't do that, we'll
Yeah, okay.
let you know.
All right, and that would just be like a quick bring it in.
Yeah,
and
it's just like
a
I wanna approve
action
this
item.
adjustment
Okay.
to our
Okay.
standards.
Right.
Okay,
Right, yeah, that
Oh,
sounds good.
awesome.
So what happens now? Like, I don't know these
Motion
processes.
to adjourn.
Me
So
neither.
we will need to make a purchase.
Okay.
Does it go to the full
It does
board
not
though?
need to go to the
Nope.
full
Oh,
board.
okay, that's
We
what I was
are
wondering.
good, so we'll make a purchase and then
Go start planning.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, even more exciting to rest up and
Yeah,
all-
at least
all
enjoy the
these
four.
things. Let's
Yeah.
But I think I'm excited to do the work that we did to help the pilot
Yes.
be
Yeah.
successful. And then knowing what the feedback we got from teachers and what was helpful to them that we did to kind of help them
Yeah.
just dive right in. I'm like, okay, good, we'll do that so that they feel that way starting this school year.
Interesting to see if maybe other schools.
Kudos to you, it sounds like you did a lot of work on that front end to make this successful, and that will continue to go through now with implementing it, so, well
Yes,
done.
and I did, I think it was one of the
I'm
last
impressed.
the last week of school, Nina and I looked at each other one point like, this went really well. First try, like that it went
Yeah.
really well, and then knowing that we have other curriculum to be looking at, I think
Yeah.
our process is sound, and now we get the process a little bit where we'll be
Yeah,
able to
iron
tackle
it
the
out,
next
you know
one.
it works, it's
Yeah.
effective.
That's great.
Thanks, both
Yeah.
of the jobs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
It was, and it was just really important to us that it was like the voice of those 27 pilot teachers and that we were really just facilitating the
Okay.
process.
We corrected them when they said, well, what are you, I'm like, we're not doing anything, we're just
Right,
right.
bringing your
Yeah.
recommendation,
Yeah,
your
yeah.
recommendation,
Right.
we're just bringing it to the
Okay,
viewers,
gotcha.
so.
Yes.
So to
Yeah,
have
I
all
mean-
of that data and everything that we're just really presenting on their behalf, not that it's our vote.
Or Amy,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
although I would say I 100% support, we wouldn't be here if I,
Okay,
if I
Mhm.
felt like I could stand
Yeah.
behind this, but I was really, really impressed with what I
That's
saw.
Especially since you saw it and you're
I
like.
did,
hmm.
exactly, I was like,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, and then I got in and I couldn't tell which one I was looking at, and I
What
was
the
like,
heck?
okay, this is great, so
Yeah,
That was, I agree, doing those observations for me too was super helpful to actually see.
super
Mhm.
fun, like that was a highlight, like going into kindergarten and helping them plant seeds and who are you? And then I need
Who are you and
come
what do you
over
bring?
here,
Oh, yeah, I got put to work when I was
Yeah.
Who are you?
I got to know some little kids that were just super, so
Aw.
it was great to
great.
do that too, so, yeah.
very
So
good.
thank you, ladies.
Yeah,
We're
thank
out.
you,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank
Go
you.
enjoy the
Thank
rest of your
you.
summer, so we'll talk soon.
Yeah, have a
Maybe
happy
see you through the
fourth.
fourth, and then we'll.
Yeah, I know, I can't believe the fourth is next week already. Crazy. All right.
Thanks for
So moving along to discussion item, post-secondary certifications and credit opportunities report presented by Amy Fuller.
Yeah, and actually, I'm gonna let Laura do
Oh,
the presenting
Laura.
today.
All
So,
right.
Laura keeps track of all this data or compiles all this data on an annual basis. Usually we do this report in the winter.
Yeah,
So, but we're, just being a little more flexible this time, so we'll do it here. But she is really, as I have come in new and have been learning all of these different pieces, she really knows all of these, there are so many options, like the back of her hand. So I am going to let her get us started, and I'm sure.
Bye. Thank you.
Do you want this shut?
no, yeah, it's
Leave it
gonna,
open. Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, it sounds like it's getting a little noisy out there.
Oh.
So I'll let her get started,
Okay,
and I
great.
may pipe in a little bit,
Okay.
but, yeah.
I'll look at what I printed out, I don't feel I should print out everything.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
So this is just a quick synopsis. Normally you would receive this information in January because of how we get the information at the end of the year. So the majority of this report will be the 21-22 school year data. We don't have the 22-23 school year data in there yet because it's too early, which is why it's always kind of timed in that January timeframe. And we do have it on the schedule to be in January in the 23-24 year. So we'll get back to our typical process.
Okay.
So our outcomes, we're gonna go through a couple of the different programs, pipe in with questions as you have them.
All right.
And all these programs are offered at Menominee Falls High School. So the first one that you see here is our internship/supervised occupational experience. It used to be that supervised occupational experience SOE, and as the state has shifted language, we followed that shift and it's now being called an internship, which is what it is regardless of what they title it. And that's typically designed for our 12th grade students, and they work off-site, and they work with Lisa Kiefer to be at a regular job employer, and then they have minimum requirements for them to earn that internship experience, and then Lisa Kiefer coordinates with the student and the employer on how the experience is going.
That was my daughter, she did that. She did
Awesome.
Pharmacy,
Yeah.
not tech, it's the level below her.
Sure.
She just passed her test now, where she
Awesome.
can give shots and stuff.
Perfect. And then we have the YA program, and that's the Youth Apprenticeship Program. And that one is for 11th and 12th grades, and that one is related to grant funds. So there's typically significant hours required around it, and a lot more stringent rules that Lisa follows, and she often again works with employers and has different requirements as far as students earning certificates and different licensures or things like that.
Can I ask as we go? Is that okay? Because it just pops in my head. So does the employers change over, I mean, obviously some bail out and they add more.
It depends on what the student wants to do.
Okay.
So Lisa tries really hard to work with what the student is interested in, or to see if she has an employer that maybe she hasn't used before and now she suggests, well, you could do this, this, or this to the student.
Okay.
If they're not sure where they wanna go.
I kind of was under the impression it was like the businesses come first and then whoever wants to, so
It works both
which came
ways.
first? Okay, that's interesting, okay.
Lisa's very good about maintaining a lot of relationships within the community.
Yeah, so she's got like kind of like a Rolodex.
She does. She's very good at generating new opportunities too.
Yes.
That's great.
Yep, so she works really hard. I know we've had kids who have done like dietitian work and some of the CNA stuff, some accounting stuff. She's had a whole variety, and I've got a little more detail coming up here.
Okay, great.
So,
Probably didn't print that out, no.
it's okay. So you can see our numbers across the years. We had the dip around 2020 and 2021 just because of access to businesses being a bit of a struggle with all the different requirements that were in place at that time. And then we've started to go back to more of our regular numbers in 2022 here. Some of the things that impact those numbers are student schedules. We know that a lot of our students like to stay at the high school for all of their classes. Working off-site, they do have to fit it into their schedule. Lisa does a really good job working with student services and with the registrar at the high school to manipulate schedules as best they can to open up blocks of time. But those blocks of time also have to work with whatever the business is willing to work with too. So you just have all those factors that you have to take into account.
So it's climbing back up.
Yes.
That, I mean, the pinnacle was, 2017.
Yes.
Seemed like for the internships, that's
Yes.
interesting. So I bet you it'll go back up more.
We're
now that
at
COVID's kind of,
I think
Yes.
it will.
I hate to bring that word up again.
But unfortunately it was a factor in
I know.
kids being
I
able to get
know.
out and,
Yeah.
And then
you know,
people reaching out, I mean,
people wanting
Yeah.
kids and
at our hospital, we have, I don't even think we still let high schoolers in the hospital yet, but it might change soon. For like shadowing and all that, cause I
Yes.
missed that with the health academy, they used to do that, I had a high schooler shadow me, a couple of them. But that was a bummer, okay, but that was the academy.
Yep. The internships for 2022 were up to 26 students. And the youth apprenticeship was at 15. And the youth apprenticeship is typically always underneath that internship level because of the requirements that program has. They're just more stringent and it's typically a 2-year commitment versus the internship they do as a senior, and they typically have a lot more flexibility in their schedule at that point.
And, yeah,
So if you look at the bar graph here, you can see where we typically have the most students.
It's my ink.
I was gonna say your printer.
I can hear my husband saying, why did you print it out in color?
So you can see, and this is cumulative, where we typically have the most interest from our students. So finance is always a big area. Again, this is the YA program, that's typically the 2-year commitment. So finance, a lot of accounting, our business department at the high school is very strong. And Lisa has a lot of good connections there. And then health science, a lot of times around the C&A opportunities is another big area. There are some new areas that'll be popping up in the next couple years. The mobile equipment was a new one. And I believe Lisa said marketing is gonna be coming through in the next couple of years too. As students can be more specific about what they're interested in, and the YA program allows for that as it kind of ebbs and flows with where the markets are going.
sure.
All right, the Cooperative Academic Partnership Program, we abbreviate as the CAP program. And I don't wanna get too in the weeds if you already know what it is, but it allows our students to take a class at the high school, and they can also choose to enroll with the college to earn college credits at the same time. And they pay a severely discounted per credit rate. And then those are their college credits that go with them wherever school they choose to go to.
Okay.
It's on a transcript, so it's not linked to them having to attend a specific school after high school.
Right. Oh my gosh, they've made this stuff so much easier.
There's some I think we're really lucky, we have some great opportunities.
I know. And it's been, how many, or are you gonna show me?
There's a number,
right
yep. So in 21-22, these were our CAP credit courses. You can see how the numbers kind of flow across the years. Our honors financial accounting is a number I'm still working to get. Just with the shift in office staff at the high school, I just wanted to make sure I have a correct number for you, and I don't have it quite yet. And then you can see in 21-22, that was the first year that honors individual school and society course ran.
Okay.
And that's a partnership with UW Oshkosh and under our Educators Academy.
Oh, wonderful.
Yep.
Okay.
So those numbers will always be probably typically smaller because it's a more specified program than, the general German or Spanish or business classes.
And I'm sorry, you might have said it, but is it like, what school does it go through, like the?
So there's a couple
All
schools.
different, yeah.
Yep, some of our accounting courses go through Lakeland University. I believe the other 4 that are up there, the personal finance, German, Spanish, and that education course are through UW Oshkosh.
Okay.
And then coming up in the 22-23 year, we added a course with UW Milwaukee that was anatomy and physiology.
Oh.
So you'll see that one added in the January 2024
Sure.
presentation.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, that's so exciting with that teaching academy.
Yes.
Yes, I got to spend some time with them this year and really, really enjoyed that. And I need to bring Leah with me next time with business cards. So so they will call her when they graduate.
Here's
Right.
a
Interview packet, right?
Exactly.
Yes. All right, we also do offer 2 other programs, the Start College Now program and the Early College Credit program. These programs have different restrictions per the state. The Start College Now program allows our 11th and 12th graders to submit an application to us to attend a college course at the technical college that they choose. And we review them to see if it's a course we offer or not, and then go through an approval process there. The Early College Credit program follows the same type of application and everything, but that's specific to college or university, the 4 years, or the UW system 2 years. where the Start College Now is the technical colleges,
Okay,
just so you know the differences there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you can see our numbers across both of the programs and the different semesters. And these are the number of courses that were taken, not the number of students. So we do have some students that might apply for one course and only take one course. We've also had students that apply for 3 or 4 courses and they take a significant amount of credits. Oftentimes those are seniors who again have a lot of room in their schedule. So those courses for like the technical college Start College Now program, we've had people take interior design, hospitality courses, child development courses, real estate, some in more of the technical electricity and motors, and that's also where the C&A courses typically fall. And then the early college credit program, those are often advanced math like calculus 3,
sure.
and the kids who have advanced out of the math courses we offer at the high school.
Yep.
We've had some take some poli-sci classes, theater classes, philosophy. It's just a very general and broad
So
opportunity.
would this, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Would this apply to like, can they take like an online university class and have that
They can. It depends on what they apply
paid
for.
for versus,
Yes.
sure, as long as we don't offer it.
Yep.
And it qualifies, then it
Yes.
could be online, it could be they drive there, okay.
I'll think of it.
Next one you can go first.
No, that's okay. Oh, is it?
We also have advanced standing credit courses. This is an agreement we have with typically WCTC where students can earn a specific grade or higher and then they can receive credit for that course when they enroll at the technical college, the specific technical college. So again, there's a lot more rules around this particular course. And WCTC has been making some significant changes to this program on their side over the past couple of years. So you can see where we had multiple years where we had significant numbers. In 21-22, WCTC permanently discontinued the tech drafting / CAD course and an introduction to programming. Those courses were discontinued as advanced standing by WCTC. Their reasoning behind it is they were shifting some of the topics that they were teaching in the courses, and they also said there's so much shift in those experiences and the required skills that having students take it as a junior or a senior or earlier is too long of a time for them to come into WCTC and not have to take it again and have the skills to move on to the next level classes.
Okay,
So that's a choice WCTC made, you know, and we're, for this particular program, we're at their whim for that.
sure,
So for 23-24, we'd be looking at digital electronics, more than likely running if we have the student numbers for it, and WCTC will tell us if that will still stand as an advanced standing course or not.
okay,
Transcripted credit is also an agreement we have with WCTC. These are courses that are taught at the high school, and our teachers have matched curriculum where WCTC has looked at our curriculum and said, yes, you teach enough of this curriculum that it matches to what we teach, with the rigor to what we teach. And when students earn that C- or higher, they can receive the transcripted credit, typically used at WCTC and then can be transferred to a 4-year college or university. That depends on the college or university students choose to go to.
okay,
Yep, so there's a list there of the different classes that we have that are transcripted credit. And then you can see the course enrollments over the past couple of years, the completion rates, the total credits earned, again, that depends on where the kids go, but WCTC always gives it to us in a data form of if every kid that was in the transcripted credit course came to us, this is how many credits they would have earned.
okay,
And then the total tuition value is not an amount we pay,
Yeah.
that's an amount that all of those 1,055 credits would save if every kid chose to go to WCTC.
sure.
Hi Nina.
Okay, sorry.
My Zoom
We're gonna
lasted
switch
way
here. Is
longer.
there enough room for you? You better spread out, Sarah. Okay, while she's settling, So, yeah, I mean, you answered that pretty much, but like I was gonna say, like through the, I forgot which one, see that as a parent,
Yep,
I'm
there's a lot of
sorry,
options.
I
Yeah, we
expressed
just-
that to
it's a
Amy,
lot
and
of
it's a little
options.
boggling, but what is so nice is if they can take some of those gen eds
Mhm.
and get credit for it. And you know, as we all know,
Yes,
once
yeah.
they get to college, it's a little
Yep, and
nicer
we-
on, you know, that they're more forward with their credits and everything, they're ahead,
And
so,
per our policy, we approve up to 18 credits. So we have had students that have used the Start College Now or Early College Credit Program to max out 18 credits by the time they graduate.
you know, and I swear, that wasn't on my radar, I was a parent of two former seniors or high schoolers, so
Well, this is so much easier.
Yeah.
I think every year it gets more streamlined
Yeah.
and easier to use these programs. I mean,
oh, yeah, for
obviously,
sure.
you know, like, cause even 5 years ago, you know, looking through these, I've heard of 3/4,
Sure.
but then it's constantly growing and expanding and just making it easier for kids to learn a concept and then say, I've learned that concept and move forward with it, which is, you know, education is so expensive.
Yes.
So for them to be able to take that with them is great.
And we talked about like the communication of it on the website.
Right, so yeah, things are on the website under, I think it was off-campus opportunities.
Yeah, I'm
So,
looking
and
at it
I have on my list
Yeah.
to mention to the high school, just how are we communicating these pieces?
Like streamlining it more or something.
Yep, our counselors do share it with all the students, all the different
Yeah.
programs. I don't know that they go into like the transcripted credit or the advanced standing stuff as much, just because the kids are already signed up for those courses with us anyway.
Sure.
Those students don't have to do anything
Yeah,
additional for it, but the
Yeah.
CAP classes, the early college credit and Start College Now, and then coming up, the dual enrollment academy are all things that the counselors do talk about with the kids.
I just feel like it should be out there more for the parents in a sense where like, cause I could have probably nudged my middle one to take something, you know, to add something, I don't know.
Sure. Well, and we do know with like the Start College Now and early college credit, if they're not doing an online course, which the technical colleges don't always offer, it depends on kind of the subject you're interested in, because a lot of those classes are more hands-on skills. It still has to fit into the student's schedule. They do have to have
I know.
transportation to
Yeah,
get
so it's
to
in
and
their
from.
It gets
scheduling
tricky.
purview, yeah.
And then
The
a lot of
student
our
has to
students.
really want it.
Yeah.
Too, for,
Yeah.
you know, and
Well,
work
and
hard
that-
for any of these.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the transcripted credit, I mean, my middle one, we just signed up, we just did her classes, setting up her classes, and I wasn't involved with my oldest. She had that all taken care of online ahead of time, but I mean, it was amazing to see how much she's got credit for, cause she took medical terminology and other things, and yeah, and the AP stuff helps too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Yep, and we do have students that front load more on the AP side than they do on the other sides.
Oh, gotcha,
With the
yeah,
early college credit and Start
like
College
gen
Now.
ed type things too, or,
Well, so if we offer it as an AP course, we
Okay.
don't approve it as an early college credit course,
gotcha,
because our students have the capability to take it within their regular schedule
Yeah.
at the school.
gotcha.
So our early college credit students are typically already on a pathway that they know they want to take a course in. Like we have a lot of the math and science, the physics, they've already taken all of our AP math and all of our AP physics options.
Mhm.
So, you know, they're going into engineering or whatever the case may be. And they'll often use the early college credit program for those things.
So, cause they can't like cross program, but they can a little, some of these kids can cross,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah,
yeah,
they
okay.
have the option to request whatever course they want. We try to give
Yeah,
them
And
guidance
just
as
tell them
far
if it
as,
works or not.
you know, please
Okay.
know the prerequisites, because we aren't gonna approve a
Yeah.
course that the college is gonna decline because you didn't take the first one. And then if it's something that we offer on site, it won't be approved, because we'd rather you take it with us,
Yeah.
because there's significantly more support
Yeah.
if they take it at the high school than if they take it at the college.
Yeah, it's so nice.
Well, and cost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
the cost, I mean, that was huge.
Then-
It's expensive.
Yeah, it gets
So, which
expensive,
is,
right.
it's well worth it, but it
Yeah.
is a significant.
I mean, she
item.
could, I mean, cause of her AP stuff, she could jump ahead with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's not doing the English and, yeah.
It's really nice.
Good.
For the dual enrollment academies are an agreement we have again with WCTC, and it allows our typically seniors to spend a significant portion of their day for the entire year at WCTC in a program that they have applied to. So the student works with WCTC first on this, where they apply to a WCTC program. WCTC has to accept them into the program. They come to us as a district and say, these are the applications we received, we declined these, we accepted these, and then we have the agreement of will we pay for it. So we have, those are the programs that WCTC offers. Some of their programs are very competitive and kids apply and don't get in. Other programs kids have applied and are able to get into. They are college level programs. So we have, you'll see in the numbers in the next slide, the student interest kind of waxes and wanes. And it just depends on what the students want to do and how many seats WCTC has available.
Sure.
Have we ever considered expanding that list, like for example, like into healthcare, because I think WCTC has like courses in, for example, veterinary tech, you know.
WCTC
Nursing.
decides this list, it's
Oh.
not a list that we
Don't?
decide.
Okay.
These are the programs WCTC says they will offer. Students can take like a vet tech course if they wanted to go through the Start College Now program.
The other one.
Yeah, the other one, one of the other ones.
I need a roadmap, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I do.
Sorry,
Like a nice, I don't know,
Behind.
yeah.
The difficult
Yeah.
thing about that is that when students apply to any of the colleges for Start College Now or early college credit courses, they are the last ones to get scheduled, and that's per the universities and colleges because
Makes sense, they're
Yeah.
gonna serve their people first.
Priority wise.
Mhm.
yes, so we have students that have maybe wanted to take cosmetology, but cosmetology always fills up at WCTC. So the odds of a student being able to take it as a Start College Now student are very slim. So, sorry, going back to
No, that's
dual
good.
enrollment. Those are the programs that WCTC has said they can do within a day for a year for the students, and then they designate what courses the students have to take in what order they have to take them. And it is college level, and the amount of oversight we have into that is lower because they're considered college students at that point. So WCTC will share with us if we reach out and ask about progress on students, but it's not the same as a high school where we can see their grades on a consistent basis. So moving on to the next slide, you can kind of see where our numbers are and where there's interest. So that firefighter, EMT, now they've added criminal justice.
Yeah, that was
Has always been a semi-popular one. The IT systems is kind of, waxes and wanes. And then that welding and fabrication over the past 2 years has been a little more popular.
Do they still do, they're probably going ahead. Do they still do the GPS program though?
We do the
Okay.
GPS program, that has its own requirements that the
Gotcha.
high school works with GPS on. GPS is an off-site education location where students, who maybe aren't feeling like they fit at the high school location well, can go for hands-on experiences, in technical fields oftentimes. So a lot of those students will work within the YA program that we talked about earlier, that job experience program, along with doing hands-on classes to earn certifications, oftentimes around manufacturing, sometimes around welding, employability skills, those types of things. I wanna say it's typical for us to have between like 1 to 4 students in that program a year, rough numbers.
Sure.
So we have 18, like down there, the most recent, is that an average,
For when we're looking at the 22-23, no, we had 16 students that year. And
So comparable to other districts, are we kind of,
I'd have to look, I didn't look at all the other districts' data. I could look and get back to you.
Proportionally, based on our size, based on what I know, we're in a good spot.
okay.
And the dual enrollment program is a cost commitment on our side for it, because those tuitions range from $3,000 to $4,000 for each kid.
Do we put a limit on the number of students?
We have not in the past, we've always been able to flex our budget enough to be able to cover, like that 16 students, that was a big flex.
Yeah.
That was about it was
Yeah.
$30,000, I think, that over what we had previously budgeted.
But it's worth
So
it.
but if depending on our future budget situation and the interest,
Yeah.
that would be something that we might have to consider,
Sure.
you know, but hopefully we don't, because it's a great opportunity.
Yes.
I just think also too, the trend of education, the cost, I think students are taking advantage of this opportunity because why not, right?
Absolutely.
You don't have the school district pay for it when you can actually get an education and not foot the bill for it. And that might be something that I think may become more popular.
Right, so it is something that, you know, we're paying attention to. Now, our participation for next year is lower than this.
Significantly,
Oh,
I think we're
yeah.
back down to the
Yeah.
5 range.
Oh, wow.
Why is that? Do you know?
It's a significant time commitment and just the college readiness, like kids are off-site for basically their whole day. They'll take maybe English and personal finance.
And it might be the topic there, maybe there's more kids that are
Yeah, it
drawn to a
depends on-
certain, like,
Interest, but,
Do
and
that?
having
I
room
don't
in
know.
their schedule,
Yeah.
you know, to make that significant, so you have to be done with other things.
oh, yeah, requirements and stuff.
To do this, and then readiness, you know,
Yeah.
I think is an important one, because you want to be successful in this program, and there is a level of independence that not every high school senior has yet. That senior year is still a important developmental year, so.
And what WCTC has available, like they put together their academies and they cap their numbers. So if all the surrounding districts have, 100 kids interested in welding and there's only 20 kids interested in IT systems, then they deny welding and say, we have these programs with spots still available if any kid is interested. But most of the time, kids aren't looking between 2 programs there. They
Right, they're
only
interested
want.
in one, they apply for the one, and if they can get in, that's what they do.
Is this also for like our offer for like our Quest students?
Yep.
Okay.
Our Quest
Just was
students are
wondering.
able to do Start
Just-
College Now, early college credit, the dual
Yeah.
enrollment.
Yeah.
Depending on what they're interested in. And we've had some Quest students do more of the Start College Now or early college credit, where they're doing the one course. They don't typically lean this way as early because, again, the rigor and the time commitment, it's just a lot for even our seniors who are super on top of it.
Yeah.
Have found it overwhelming at times.
Probably
And
can't
then
really
the-
have a
the
job
credit
with that,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the having a job or being in sports, a lot of our students are in extracurricular activities. It is hard to juggle all those together.
Yeah.
And then just to wrap it all up, we know that having that advanced level coursework is a key indicator for students to be successful following high school. So we do our best to offer as many advanced options as we're able to as a district. And from what we've talked about, you can see we have a wide range, covers a wide range of interests and subjects, topics for students to look into. Are there any other questions?
Any questions?
No, good, okay.
Thank
Moving on,
you. Yes.
All right, and so the next one is curriculum and learning strategic priorities.
Yes, so this was on the calendar, and I was like,
Whoa.
I wonder what around strategic priorities we'd like to hear, because we know we're drafting our scorecard, and that district scorecard will come later.
Okay.
Because we're still drafting, we're still waiting for some data, raw data is in, but I can't share it yet, it's, there's still that embargo, so all this, but I thought I could give you a little sneak peek of what so far on the curriculum and learning kind of priorities, knowing that these could still shift, but so we know that, and maybe I think you know, maybe not, that right now, as leaders, we're doing some planning and discussing, have some preliminary state assessment data again
can't share it until later. But we're starting to look at that. We've been discussing based on what we know about this year, what priorities do we need to have moving forward. As leaders, we gathered in early June to start looking at draft scorecards, and we won't be able to close out that scorecard from this current year until we have some of the academic data fully finalized. So we're still kind of in this flux, but I anticipate either August or September we'll be able to share, here's what we did with our scorecard, our district scorecard for this year, and here's what we're planning for next year. So
So-
again, as a little sneak peek.
So preliminary state assessment data, you get it first, right?
Yes, so
Okay,
I have some, I don't have all of it yet.
okay, so it's kind of
And
coming in.
yeah, it comes in, and then what they use for accountability, like those
Yeah.
DPI school report cards, is data on students who've been here the full academic year. So right now I have raw data for
Oh.
everybody, but I don't have it
Okay.
filtered, and then we have some students who have take the alternate
Okay.
assessment and all that. So it takes a
Okay.
while for us to really know, like, what's that
Yeah.
accountability percentage?
Okay.
But right now I'm feeling okay.
Oh,
So I'll just say that.
I'm trying to read your face right now.
I know, sometimes
I know,
usually you
right?
can read it, but
I know, right?
my
All
parents'
right, I won't-
face is not here, so, I mean, I'm not,
That's a good sign, it's a good
yeah,
sign.
I'm okay, so we'll
It's
say
okay,
that
it's okay.
So these are some things that are on the scorecard. Many of these won't be a surprise to you, things that we're going to be, as of right now, thinking about, talking about, working on. And so literacy, as you know, is huge. That was our number one scorecard goal, our greatest area of need. We have our early literacy project, and folks at the early elementary participating in an early literacy academy. We just had that 3 through 5 literacy audit that happened in the spring. I just got the report I think it was Monday. I haven't had a chance to even read it. I talked with the auditors and now it's on my desk, so we'll be able to read that, and some implications will come from that. And then we have our standards work happening this summer. We had some this spring as you adopted those standards in December, and now we're unpacking and we'll be determining what kind of the next steps are. Do we need to do more curriculum review? Do we have gaps in what standards we need to teach and the materials we have to teach them? Those kinds of things are happening now. Teachers are doing some summer curriculum work to get there. So you'll hear more about that. I do,
So isn't that like a sense of urgency with that?
100%.
Yeah.
And so and one piece is that early literacy piece. So Michelle Strupp, our early literacy coordinator, or our elementary literacy coordinator, was not able to be here today. I don't know if she'll be able to be at our next meeting, July 11th. If she's not, I will bring you an update, because I have, as we've been going through this academy, looking at the science of reading, is telling board members Stuhlin here that we've identified an urgent need in the area of phonemic awareness.
Okay.
And so that is a piece that is not in our current program that needs to be there. And so we have identified a resource that we would like to bring forward to implement next year. We piloted it a couple of years ago at 4K. We have not piloted it at grades K and 1, so I'd like to propose adopting it for next year and call next year our pilot. Then do it with everybody.
And because there's a need in those two grades,
Because there's a need in
right?
those two grades. So I'll talk more about that when we get to it, but that's part of that sense of urgency. I wanna move a little more quickly on
They
that,
were able to
so
hone in and
Because the
it's like
last
they're-
standards was like 10 years old, I believe.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, it
so
was
yeah,
from
so this
2010, I
is
think, right?
supported by standards, but it's even more supported by what we're learning about the science of reading and those essential components, and where our current program and the best practices from the science of reading, where they're coming together and where we're seeing those gaps.
Because I don't think our current, I'm remembering from my homework, that we were lacking
Yeah.
specifically
I-
those two categories. That's
Yeah.
why it reflected poorly on our numbers and our
Yes.
scores, so.
But I think that, and that's what I
remember
think you
reading
said too,
that
like the
curriculum
forward
too.
tests
Seeing a lot
might not be
of
really
reviews of the
reflecting
curriculum.
because we're not fully,
Right, so we've got some
Adapting,
pieces, we've got some pieces we definitely need to work on. The other thing that the 3 through 5 audit, I think, has pointed out, just based on conversation, is the resource we do have, we need to be using with fidelity.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
So lots of pieces to come on those two things, but that is,
Okay.
you know, primary area of focus, and I am gonna come to you next month with something that is pretty urgent that I would like to move on, so.
Okay.
That is that, so much more to come there. Obviously, the science curriculum adoption we just talked about is a piece that we'll be implementing that was approved, so.
Yeah.
Is it the,
It's mystery
Mystery
science.
science,
Mystery
yes.
it was a mystery?
It's cool, I like it.
Yeah, so, and our kids liked it. There's-
Well,
I might
The
actually
results
like
were very
science again.
consistent
Yeah.
across the board, parents, teachers.
I looked at, I mean, I was able to look at this,
Mhm.
and it looked like it was mystery science across the board.
Yes, yes, it was very clear.
The only thing I was, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No, we're talking,
The supplemental
science.
resources need, I wanted to ask about that, but why was that so low compared to
Because people
amplifying?
don't feel like they need them.
Oh, because it was
Because it's a
adequate
good
enough that you didn't
Yeah.
need, oh, okay,
Yeah, so that's what we like to see.
so I might actually like science even after my science accident.
You
That I
might,
will
which
tell
you're
you
gonna talk
about
about
when
at the
this
end of the
meeting's
meeting, so
over.
I'm gonna and get to that. But
So
yeah,
mystery
so we,
science.
Okay.
yeah, so we feel really good about that, so but that will be something new for teachers. So
Mhm.
something that we need to spend some time around. Obviously, you know the middle school start time is new, so that's something we'll be focusing on. High school has had Avid for a number of years, but it hasn't been used school-wide. And so they'll still have the Avid courses, but we're expanding who's involved in Avid because it has some really good professional development around universal strategies, focused note-taking, for example. And so working with the high school team to kind of envision how we use Avid, it is an expensive investment, but I have seen it pay off other places. And they also provide amazing professional development that teachers always, in my experience, come back really energized from.
Okay.
And so looking to see how that
that
evolves.
was, I think, because we had Avid and
Rise.
Rise, and so it was challenging to have both.
Both, yeah.
And so now they're gonna, I think, sunset Rise
Correct.
and then have the Avid more like
School-wide.
universal.
Yeah.
And so we'll see that.
Okay,
That's what,
that makes sense, consistency,
Yes, so
easier to track and monitor and use.
and all students can benefit from it.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be, I mean, we can have a small group of students who would really benefit from the actual Avid course, but all
Like the
students can.
Rise, possible Rise, okay.
Correct, like there'll be an Avid elective that students can participate in,
Oh,
but there's also the just the universal practices that will be good for all kids, so.
so is it gonna be additional cost? Cause I know at the very beginning, and I think I talked to Dan about that, about, the beginning of the year, the Rise, Avid, which way to go.
Mhm.
And I think the Avid was chosen simply because if you get rid of it and implement it back, down the road, it actually costs more versus, right, or it's something about that.
So what we've done is we had a teacher who just did the Rise Avid combo. And so we no longer have that specific
Right.
position, but there is an educational assistant who will support identified students throughout the building in that.
Mhm.
But some Avid instructional responsibilities are gonna be spread among a few teachers. So that may be what just kind of reusing things a little bit.
Because I think it was debating, I think initially it was to sunset Avid
Correct.
and go Rise, and so I think the cost effective, if I recall him saying that we already have the Avid, and if we were to sunset it and we decide we wanna go back into it,
It's more
that's where
difficult.
it's
Mhm.
difficult
Oh.
versus,
And
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
just
and I
like
think
get rid
I
of it,
came,
come back.
I came in
training
with some
thing.
good, having seen Avid work in other places, and I'm like,
Yeah.
hold on, let's
still
give this
hope.
one more shot.
Yep.
And think about it
Gotcha.
differently before we make that decision.
Oh,
And then,
that's a good point.
and ultimately in 2 or 3 years, we may still make that decision.
Yeah.
But I think giving it, again, what I've seen with like focused note-taking and just
Like
writing and
executive
collaboration
function.
strategies, yes, has been really beneficial for students and for teachers
Mm-hmm.
in the teaching strategies that they use, so.
And I don't think it was school-wide either.
No.
No,
It was just for the
being used
Rise
with
kids, I remember Avid
with a
and
few
Rise, so.
students and
And you don't have to
you
pay
can
more
do
for it to be school-wide, it's
No,
just based
no,
on
it's
who's
just,
trained.
right, so if
Okay.
you train more people,
Yeah.
then yes, you have to send them to the professional
Yeah.
development,
Oh,
which is
yeah,
an upfront cost.
Yeah,
But the other thing that we're doing around that one is, so Avid requires you to have a district director. So that would be like previously, it was my predecessor.
Pardon? Is it Harvard Ridge now?
It is.
Oh, okay.
So that's one thing that we've done, like, part of it would be then your director has to go to training every 3 years. Well,
Oh,
and that's great, and I wouldn't mind going, but if we train somebody in the building who's there every day, then we've spent
good
that
resource,
money
yeah,
to have a good resource in the building. So Jeff Robinrich is gonna be the AVID district director,
that's great.
and that will allow that to just be more cost effective, so.
Great.
But I will stay connected to that work and we will have it on our scorecard because we want to monitor the effectiveness. On our curriculum schedule is K through 12 social studies. So that would traditionally be the piece that we would take a look at. Definitely at the elementary, we know that social studies is the next need. Our resources have kind of faded over time and we wanna take a look at what we can use to improve our social studies instruction. Middle school also has some things particularly at 6th grade that they want to work on. And then there are some key classes at the high school. So in the fall, we will take a look at that and see where we go. My only hesitation in looking at K through 5 social studies for next year is I wanna pay particular attention to reading. And reading maybe become the thing that we need to do a resource adoption review around first. Because it's more of a priority.
Right.
So I wanna dig into that audit that we just had a little bit. I wanna pay attention to legislation that's being discussed right now. All of those things may impact that decision.
Yeah.
But I do know that K through 5 social studies has been waiting a couple of years. So, but I don't know that we have the capacity to do both well.
Okay,
So that's
good to
kind
be
of
aware of.
what I'm monitoring. We could make a different decision come fall, but just some things that I'm weighing at this point. Both are important, but if I have to pick one or the other, it's going to be reading.
Because it was priority on the
Yes,
scorecard.
absolutely.
And our
studies is all about reading.
It is.
So it's like,
I know. So if I could find a way to mesh both, I would, but I don't know about the capacity of our staff to do both with
Yeah.
fidelity and integrity to the process.
I think the reading would be a priority, I agree with that.
So that's just, I'm just being as
Yeah.
super transparent
Mhm.
with all that's going on in my head.
You should see our whiteboard, it's more organized now.
I was gonna say it's better, it looked like my mind
I went in the
grew up
first
on
time
it.
and
It
whiteboard's
was-
like
It was
how I
pretty
take
crazy.
notes.
It's pretty crazy.
But now it's all organized and it's color coded
It
and
is,
everything.
some of these
You
things
probably
are
had a
there.
lot of fun with those markers.
I did.
Okay.
The final piece is the continuous improvement reboot, which you'll hear about a little bit at the board meeting that we have coming up on July 10th. Our learning improvement specialists will be there and we will be talking about continuous improvement across the system, but also particularly our classroom continuous improvement. We just wanna make a recommitment to that. We train new staff every year in our continuous improvement processes, but with COVID and some changes in leadership and changes in teachers, we have an opportunity and a need to really systemize things that, just reinsure our system across all of our schools is where we want it to be. So we have some pockets of really good things happening, but we've lost some of that consistency. So we're gonna dedicate some time this fall to, and throughout the year, to kind of getting back to some of the practices while taking into consideration some of the things that we've learned about collaborative planning and using data. So it probably won't be exactly the same as what we've always done, but it'll still be at the heart of, the heart of what we know about continuous improvement and what works will still be there, so.
Sure.
So I'm excited about that. So the other thing that's not on here because it wasn't on the scorecard, but is on my whiteboard, I believe, is we wanna do some studying around gifted.
Oh, yeah, that, I was gonna
And
get
so,
agenda stuff.
we had talked about that,
Okay,
but
yeah,
I think to start out, I have two coordinators of gifted. One is Nina Overholzer, who was
Oh,
here,
okay.
she does the elementary, and then Shelley Wolf, some of you may know, does
Okay.
the secondary. And so I think at this stage, it's really just studying, getting back up to speed on best practices, what some other districts are doing. So that will be a project for them
That's
as we
great.
start the year.
Mhm.
But I don't have any strict,
Yeah.
specific action or that we're gonna adopt new resources or change processes at this point, because
Just
I
get the
think we
ball
need
rolling.
to
Yeah.
study it.
Yeah, because
Okay.
per statute, we should have a gifted program, right?
We've been
and
getting
we,
emails too.
yeah, and I have too, and so
Yeah.
I can see that we do, I just don't think it's currently as strong as it should be.
Gotcha.
So,
And even funding too, we might, if we down
Yeah,
the road,
we-
we need to maybe
we may
assess
need
that,
to-
yeah. Cause I think
remember
it's like
seeing
$11,000.
$0 on gifted.
I thought it was like
Where I saw it, but I
11,000.
saw.
I don't know why that number's popping up.
The only other question I have then is what's the difference between like gifted and then all those programs that we had just talked about? Would that be considered part of that gifted program or not
So
necessarily?
not I mean, I think it depends on how you look at it, because
Yeah.
it's not something that we
Because
would assign to students who have been identified as gifted and talented, but it's more about the pathways that students
Yeah.
choose.
Sure.
So as students get older, I think it becomes less about gifted programming specific to your child in third grade
Mhm.
and more about here are the wealth of opportunities
Okay, so
that
one of the
kids can
biggest
have in
changes
the
or
different.
the differences would be the gifted is for K through 12
Mhm.
versus like that 11, 12.
Yeah, there
Okay.
are there are different
Got it.
things at different ages.
Okay.
So
And some
they
actually have plans too, right? Like possibly?
they could,
It could,
yes,
that's something to be thinking about, like, an
have had
IEP,
testing
gifted
done.
is
It's,
that a thing in Wisconsin?
it is not a thing
Okay.
in Wisconsin. There are
But
some
like
states where it
something.
is, but it
Yeah.
is not a
Interesting.
thing in Wisconsin.
Okay.
Yeah, in some states,
They do have them, right?
they gifted is part of special education. So a
Sure.
student who has been identified as gifted would have an individual education plan just as a student with a
That
disability
makes
would.
sense to me.
Yeah, that's, but it
Yeah.
also typically comes with funding. So,
We don't have that here.
yeah.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
In the
Yeah.
state,
Yeah,
So,
right, right,
but
right.
State,
but where,
yeah.
where I grew up in Kansas, that
Yeah.
was a thing.
Okay.
So,
so you got
so
that
I
background,
have
so that's-
seen, I have seen both, so.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah, that'll be interesting to talk about, like how planning can be, programming can be based around some of these kids and,
And so.
you know, I always believe in like, you should set that bar high for them to attain and, you know, keep moving it up and, you know, so they can keep reaching higher.
I wonder if that's where, cause we've had a parent who, she's very an advocate of
Yes,
gifted.
and I believe her state is one of the
Yeah.
ones.
So that's
it
why I
Yes,
wondered
that's-
where
yes.
that's why
Mhm.
the whole discrepancy is coming into play, is like you have it statute, but how come you don't do it, but yet we came from here and it's like
It's
robust.
very different.
Now
Yeah.
I understand and that makes sense,
But
that
it's
we
something
actually
good.
have to.
So we need to
Yeah.
write
Well, we
legislature.
have to actually
Ask for funding.
And
So really, our gifted and talented has to come from our own budget and not
It does.
necessarily, so that's the
Yes.
difference.
Mhm.
So we have to make sure.
Speaking to the budget, we do budget for gifted and talented.
Mhm.
It's minimal because we don't not do the gifted and talented.
Right.
So the way our budget lines up, and we have to break it down by building or by grade level because of how budgeting comes to us. We never know, is there gonna be 3 gifted kids at Ben Franklin? Are they gonna be at Shady Lane? So we generally have that budget item, at least we have in the past, on the lower side, and then we know in our budget, if we have a need for those students, it will be met.
Oh,
We've
gotcha.
never not met a need, and it's often
Yeah.
around math,
Yeah.
tends to be where the need is identified. And I think that's one of the things you're talking about looking at next year is the other areas that could be identified too.
Yeah.
So yeah, typically, I remember very early on, we bought some materials based on Nina's request for a couple of kids in second grade.
Nina,
No,
yeah.
Nina, sorry, Nina,
Others
sorry.
before.
Yes,
Yeah.
that for a couple of students in a particular grade who had been identified as gifted and just needed some additional enrichment
Mhm.
opportunities, so there was a resource purchased for them to use, another example of a supplemental resource
Yeah.
that was provided for them. So yeah, those needs do come through and we do need them, but I think there's perhaps, and it may, through our study, then end up impacting our policy around gifted and our
True.
procedure around gifted as well,
That'd be
so,
interesting, yeah.
so
It's
yeah.
like right now, is there a practice that we have to identify them, or is it just?
Per
So
teacher.
it's based on the teacher parent recommendations, usually parent will talk with the teacher will reach out to the appropriate gifted coordinator, there is testing perhaps that will be done, and then identify interventions or supports or whatever I'm not thinking of the right word, but again,
Accommodations.
accommodations,
Yeah.
opportunities identified based on the individual students. Their identification and their needs.
Because I think the feedback from that one parent that was advocating for that was, I think for her own child,
when that was occurring.
Right.
We didn't have like a plan, like there wasn't like
Yeah, so
idea of what to do for a child. She didn't pitch, I think she withdrew her child and now that one is at a different school.
And it doesn't even have to be a specific like written out program or plan necessarily, but at least as a parent knowing that my child is
Procedure,
gonna be getting
protocol
pushed.
that you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct,
Just
and
don't
I
follow.
do
Yeah.
think that in some cases, I've gotten involved in another situation earlier on this year that there were things happening, they just weren't necessarily, it wasn't pull out and something separate, it was happening within the regular classroom. So I don't know, and part of it was communication
Yeah.
between the teacher and the parent, and so it was how the student was perceiving it, because there were other students who were there too, who also benefited from it, so it didn't feel different or special or something, so it,
Oh, interesting.
well, no, we're not doing it, well, you are, there just happened to
Yeah.
be 3 of you, not 1, so it just, once I unpacked it, it was like,
Yeah.
oh, this makes sense, but it was mostly about perception and that, you know, and
In that.
understanding, so.
And I mean, granted, we want communication all the time, but when, you know, a child is not doing well, there's more communication and it's almost like in the other extreme, we want that
It needs to be
too.
both,
Yeah,
100%, so it's about building that relationship and just clarity around what's happening and where it's happening and
Mhm.
who's delivering it and those kinds of things,
Yeah.
We'll look at the
Interesting.
policy for that.
Yeah.
I remember
We do.
reading it, but
Yeah.
I just glossed
I know.
over
We
it.
do, but
So we'll have to maybe,
I'll make a note
Yeah.
on that.
So
Yeah.
I think, so yeah, I would love the opportunity for folks as they get into
Amy
fall
can
here
join
to
out
really,
another
yeah, I need
policy
another
meeting.
policy committee, I love your policy committee, it's fine, it's fine, so,
fun.
so yeah, so a little bit
I
later
think I
in
was
the year,
good.
once we've had a chance to kind of study and get some information, because that's something I don't think we've done in a number of years.
yeah, that'd be great.
So that's been on my radar, but it hasn't, I don't know if it'll make it to the scorecard this
Okay.
year or next year
Okay.
as we do more implementation, so.
I really
Oh,
think
it's
that there's
scorecard
more.
level.
I think there's more gifted and talented students
Yeah.
that
Oh,
are
for sure.
there that we haven't really quite identified, so I think we do them a
I
disservice
100% agree
when
with you.
we don't
So,
identify them early enough and put them on that appropriate path,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of times they're so gifted,
They can be the disruptive because they get bored, so it's just weeding through.
You never
that.
know, yeah,
I have,
that's
I've
true.
seen that, I 100% have seen that.
Or they're just, they're getting those straight A's and kind of sailing through and then you're like, man.
I also think can be a difference between a student who's gifted and a student who's bright.
Mhm.
And sometimes their
Yeah,
needs are similar and
definitely.
sometimes they're different. And so I do like a student who may not,
define
So-
that for me.
well, I think a student who maybe is
All my children are
very
gifted.
divergent, I mean, they're different, they have different gifts and talents, or
I mean, that's
they're
what you're
bright,
gonna get.
hardworking, high achieving,
Yeah.
but sometimes our students who are identified as gifted aren't our most high achieving, but they think very differently or have talents in different
Okay,
areas.
they're bright.
So but either way, the thing I like about
Yeah.
our middle school math, the
Mhm.
math change that
Right.
we made, is that no matter whether the student has that label or not, they have the opportunity to select the math path
Yeah.
that is most appropriate for them. So I think, but that's an opportunity that, a student who is gifted can definitely take advantage of.
Mhm.
But it could be a student who is not identified, but is very bright and high achieving, could participate in as well. So,
Yeah. Definitely.
there are just lots of opportunities in there. So anyway, that's a long way
That's
around
great.
of
Yeah,
saying
that's a
those
great,
are
yeah,
some
we'll look
things.
into it.
So, yes.
To be continued.
It's on the list.
Continues.
Okay, great.
So
That's
so you will see, again, scorecard at the appropriate time, you'll see these different priorities reflected as key strategic actions.
Mhm.
And we'll definitely highlight progress toward those during our mid-year scorecard review and end of scorecard review. And then as we look at the calendar here in a few minutes, some of those you will see show up on the calendar as discussion or action items as we proceed through them.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Great. Oh, I gotta announce
I was
this
gonna
one,
take
sorry,
you a
sorry. I was like
Otherwise, I'm
getting,
just
I was
gonna
getting the
jump right in.
calendar queued up, you could have
Yeah,
just nudged me.
okay.
Okay, so now the next discussion item is curriculum and learning committee calendar.
Yeah. So I just started, and Laura kindly helped me, I just started plugging in some things that I was aware of and trying to create kind of a cyclical process. So you'll see, like we just talked about science. I've got science on for a year from now so that we can have time to implement, but also come back and report where our progress is.
I was wondering where that ChatGPT.
Yeah, so ChatGPT,
GPT,
that
that's so
was,
hard to say.
I think somebody
GPT.
at the board.
It was
yeah,
Shelley.
Okay, made that request and the suggestion was that we bring it to a committee. So Troy is eager and ready, that is
Oh,
his
great.
area of expertise.
In July,
Um, And so he is scheduled to come to the meeting where we have scheduled right now for July 11th. So it's a pretty quick turnaround, but it allows me to have my vacation, so thank you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
might want to clue her into it, because
Yeah.
I think she was very curious
Yeah,
about that, and she wanted to
I'll-
come, so she can
well-
ask her questions.
will you invite her, Laura?
Yeah, Laura, yeah, because I think she wants to be on that, because
She might be on
I can't
vacation, who knows?
I didn't even know what that was.
I read,
Yeah,
I read
thanks.
articles on it
Thank
since
you.
it's on the
Thank you.
agenda, but
I'm so
it's-
anti-electronic, you have no
I don't wanna know
idea.
what it is.
Yeah.
So any,
Anti-social media, I do anti-everything.
There is some
I know,
interesting,
meanwhile, my mom is
like,
72 and she works for
ethical
Apple.
questions and
Yeah.
around it too, so we'll see.
She's all
Anyway.
about that stuff, I'm sure.
I'm nervous about the AI stuff.
so I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do our 4K through second grade update. I'm still waiting to hear from some principals who are on vacation if they'll be able to make that. Summer scheduling I'm finding is just a bit of a challenge. But we'll continue to kind of work through that. And then some of the other pieces are annual things. There are a couple of months that don't have anything yet. I am not worried. We will
Feel it.
fill it. We also, I know Laura will be sending out invites for, I think Chris and Sarah and I were sitting together last week.
Mm-hmm.
And we had selected some dates, so Laura's got in here for me, August 8th at
Okay.
2:00.
I'll send you calendar invites, I just wanted to wait for the meeting before I sent them out.
Yeah.
September 18th at 6 p.m.
September what?
18th,
18th, okay.
sorry, that's okay, old eyes. October 18th at 6 p.m. November 29th at 6 p.m. And at this point, because that November meeting was so late, we discussed not having a December meeting. So,
I'm sorry if I missed my spot, but we're still talking about calendar, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Oh, you sent us a thing for
Yeah, this is the discussion that we had had with
July.
Amy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The rest of them are.
Tuesday, July.
There was
I
a
can't
calendar
remember.
item I wanted to ask you
July
about.
11? Yep. So I won't get here till like late.
Which one?
Okay, the
The
July
Tuesday?
11th.
Okay,
Because I can make it at 6. 4 to 6, so that. August 8th, Tuesday?
what time is that one on?
What time is August 8th?
I meant to
The
bring
11th was 4,
Thank you.
August 8th, sorry, 1 second. August 8th was a 2 to 4,
Tuesdays are bad.
and then September, October, and November were all 6 p.m.
Do we need to tweak
September
this?
18th is,
'Cause we-
okay, I can do September 18th, I'm good with that. October 18th, is that a Wednesday? At 6?
I think we switch it to Wednesdays in the fall.
Is
Yeah.
October 18th a
I should
Monday?
say it was same day, same
Well, the summer was, it was a challenge
That's okay.
because of,
So it's the
Because I couldn't do
Tuesday.
Wednesdays again.
Right.
I mean, I'll own it. I know.
because
You guys are
Sarah
giving
said she
me
could
the
do
side eye,
Wednesdays
I
and then
can
she took
feel
it
it.
back.
I
But-
have the best side eye.
I like to say, I'd like to say I'm the most flexible one of all here, I'm just saying,
I could do, but it's just.
except for those 2 Wednesday
I
nights.
love it if it was earlier, you know, in general,
Mhm.
but those.
Yeah.
So the 11th is because we have people coming and we need to,
Oh, yes, I was wondering about that.
July 11th?
So.
yeah, we have, you have
I
presenters
have
lined up.
presenters who are trying to come,
That's a
yes.
tricky one, it's just
Um,
for the summer, at least it went,
But what adjustment do we wanna make to the 11th?
I don't know, any adjustments?
I mean, basically, I wouldn't be able to make that one, you know, you guys.
She's saying she has to work, she'll be available at 6, so I don't
Oh.
speak for
Pretty
you,
much,
but.
yeah. That's okay,
You know,
same thing with the 8th, 2 to 4. So, yeah, literacy project, academic updates, chat. Well,
And I'm not 100% sure about the academic update yet, because I've gotta make sure those two principals are
Okay.
in, I gotta put them down.
You could watch online, I don't know how comfortable you are with, we are live streaming, we can,
Look at the eye
Well, Shelley would be here to ask and questions.
Yeah.
She would. So I could probably,
That'd be okay for
I
the
can
July
relay
one.
my questions to you guys. I
Yeah.
just don't wanna delay meetings and having essential presentations. Because
So
we're
August
just,
one.
it's just, it's becoming a hot mess. So,
The
you know, what I mean,
library
I'll
Yeah,
look
it-
around it. I can send my questions or whatnot, and I can.
Do we wanna see if we, and then the August
August
8th one, you
is
have
gonna be
a-
the same problem too, cause it is 2 to 4.
Mhm.
And that's the only thing, was again, the 2 to 4 timeframe.
So, is later better?
If it's on the 8th, otherwise,
8th,
other
maybe.
days I can do.
Mhm.
So I had it down for the 9th, Wednesday the 9th for some
I can do the
reason.
9th, 2 to 4, I can do that.
I didn't have the 8th, but I might have put it on the wrong day.
So,
I had it
I can do the
I
9th.
can do the 9th.
Okay,
So I can do 2 to 4 on the 9th.
okay. So
I,
let's
that's
switch
what I
it.
had on my calendar, so
I'm sorry, I forgot my
maybe,
plan.
no, I mean, I think it's, well, good, then.
So
I got-
Tuesday,
and
and
I
just
had
the July
two-
one I'll miss,
Yeah.
and then I'll send my questions.
I don't think I have that strokes of book on this. I
Oh,
do,
that's right, you're,
but I don't think it's on the August one,
okay,
which is fine. Okay, so we're keeping the 11th at 4 and the 9th at 2. It's gonna switch to the 9th from the 8th or the 9th or whatever.
Right.
If it was, yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay,
And then moving forward in September through December, it's on Wednesdays.
well, that September, the first
Oh,
one was
that's
the
right.
one off, cause I have my nieces, but then from there on, I will
Yeah.
protect Wednesday.
And then I had
Then
an
I
issue
can do
with a
Wednesdays at
Wednesday.
2 to 4.
It's hard because it's, when your schedule's so far out.
September 18th. Okay.
December 8th, so it's, yeah,
So it's
that
gonna look
Monday
like
night.
Wednesdays are gonna be the date
Okay.
going even at next year.
See, my
we just
brain is
didn't
working
finish that.
better if you just keep me.
I know,
Well, we are
tried,
now.
and then it
It was
got
just like-
difficult.
Yeah, it got really hard. We had to have a doodle thing and
And that didn't work
that
very
doodle
well.
thing wasn't working for us. It's
So,
like,
And
yeah.
October
18th at 6 p.m. And those during the school year, it's
another
just,
Wednesday.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's just super hard for me, well, and to
To
get
go
friends,
earlier.
to go earlier in
Yeah.
those school days, just cause my
Yeah.
days are
Oh,
booked.
that's definitely,
And it's tough for principals
yep, that's
to
understandable.
get out of the building.
And then what, I'm sorry, can you tell me the September date, just so I can cross-reference? 18th, okay. 6
That was a
p.m.
6 p.m., yep. October 18th.
Yep.
6 p.m., November 29th.
So I guess.
And then we chose not to have a December meeting because of the timing, cause
Of the
the
November.
November meeting's so late.
Yeah, I just,
So I'm just gonna say no to the July 11th.
Okay, well, that's good, we
I'm
at least we-
sorry and thank you
No, that's
for
okay.
understanding.
Yeah.
It's not like it's gonna be a money loss. Last meeting for me. I mean, no offense, but yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask though about the calendar, and it came across through a WASB email. It said agenda item reminders,
Yes, for the
Yeah.
academic standards.
okay, and that's,
Yeah.
is that in there?
So that is something I will bring to the full board on the 10th, because it does,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
it is full board information, so it's something we do
Yeah.
annually. I think Leah did it last year. So
Gotcha.
it's just like a formal, it's a reminder here, these, we adopt academic standards, they're located here on the website. As we change standards, like we changed
Mhm.
ELA standards last year, those get updated and they come to the curriculum committee for approval and
Mm-hmm.
so on and so on. So
Okay.
that agenda item is scheduled for Monday the 10th, so we make sure that we meet that statutory requirement.
Okay, and then there was another thing, but this isn't for you. I think it was, I don't know, I can't. Oh, expulsion cases.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
definitely not me. Thankfully,
There was a one thing from last year, I'm like, oh, what's that?
Giving up my student behavior work, so,
Yeah, you're like, no.
yeah, I have a
And
little.
then we got ChatGPT.
Mhm.
And then, and then the, down the road, I don't know where we're gonna squeeze it in. Or does it get driven more in policy, is the policies three,
Yeah, I
360 to
360, yeah, the
364.
360, the
Yeah.
policy develop, yeah, those 4 policies. Yeah, I didn't put those on here yet.
Okay.
I figured we're gonna work through the supplemental materials policy
Yep.
first and
Okay.
then I think what we really, as you can see from our science, the policy is written, works
Mhm.
pretty well. It doesn't need to be 4 policies. I think it can be one
Yeah.
efficient policy.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, that would be
we'll play
good.
with that, but I
Don't be scared of all my questions.
Yeah, no, I'm not at all. I don't feel like let's get through the first
No,
one and then we'll look
but
at
I
the
just
second one, but we
didn't know
won't
if
forget
you,
it. I
but
have
you,
it,
you have it on your
I have it
Chris
on my
wish list.
internal
Is it
radar.
on the whiteboard?
And on my
That's
whiteboard,
the
on the whiteboard.
On the
Okay,
whiteboard.
then it's official.
Not-
It is
And then-
not here
official.
yet.
And then I know I've harped on it, but like more, well, and it's kind of gonna be embedded, is that curriculum transparency on the website.
Right.
Like, maybe feedback from us or some sort of discussion, I'm thinking, somewhere down the line.
So, yeah, and I think
Nothing
that's
urgent right now.
that's a work in progress,
Yeah,
but,
slash maybe even involving Annie at some
I was gonna
point.
say, I feel like
Yeah,
if we wanna
communications.
redesign the website, like that's a piece that I would want
And on
Amy involved in.
communications too.
Perfect, because that's not my area of expertise
Yeah,
by far.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I like, or
Yeah,
just like
maybe.
looking, well, that's your job, I mean, looking at the content.
yeah, I totally can support and help with the content, but as far as the design and what's easy for parents and what
Mhm.
makes sense,
Sure.
yeah, I would defer to Amy on that.
Okay.
So,
So, all right, so we addressed curriculum and learning committee calendar and then setting next meetings, that's all addressed.
Yeah.
so-
And so I need
I move to adjourn.
okay,
I'll second.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
And all opposed? No. Do I have to say that
Use
though,
your,
right?
yeah.
It just seems so weird. Okay, and then as a reminder, we have to call the village.
We
Which
don't
Leah-
call the
We
village.
don't have to because of the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
Well, Leah-
and we're gonna turn off
Which is
the-
a fun story Leah always shares
Oh,
with us.
yeah.